Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. As Amanda said, I'm Debra Tropp, and really the star of our show today is going to be Ron Batcher, the staff architect with our Marketing Services Division, who will tell you all about all the great technical assistance he's able to provide those of you that are looking to design or rehabilitate market facilities. What I thought would be useful to start out with is a brief overview of our AMS grants, resources, and technical assistance in the local food area, so that you have sort of a context in which we're operating that might help inform you as you seek to ask for assistance or look for grant support down the road. So thought it might be useful to start with the basic question: what is USDA's and AMS's connection to local food? Well, it might surprise you to know that it really, in my estimation, dates back to 1946 with the passage of the Agricultural Marketing Act, which is the primary legislative authority under which we operate. This act mandates that we support the development and creation of shorter food supply chains, that we work towards ensuring that food producers receive a greater share of the retail price, and that we support profitable marketing of all U.S. farmers at all levels of scale. This act was amended in 1976 to require us to focus our attention on direct-to-consumer marketing opportunities, saying we should promote direct marketing of farm products where it provides mutual benefit to farmers and consumers. So that's certainly very much part of the ethos of which we work. I put these up as an intro just to give you a sense of how this has been a real struggle for us to reduce the price spread between producers and consumers. The images that you see on the left side of the slide are the ERS food dollar marketing bill, where the average farm share you see just under 15 cents, the marketing share just over 85 cents for every dollar expended by consumers on average. When we're talking fresh vegetables, the spread is not quite as severe. You'll see at the bottom of this page that right now, this is based on 2016 data, it's hovering around 26 cents of every dollar. But still, I think part of the challenge that faces us, faces you in the field, is how do we do a better job of ensuring that farmers can receive a better share of the amount of money that's actually spent on food. And certainly shorter supply chains can be part of that answer. If we look at the breakdown here of the amount of money that's devoted to, say, advertising and retail trade, packaging, transportation, you get a sense of some of the ways in which shorter supply chains can serve to enhance the relative share that producers receive. So how do we help? We do a lot of things. We have market research, analysis, data products, technical assistance, and really our general intent is to help stakeholders like yourselves better understand the trends going on in the marketplace and apply best practices as we're learning from across the nation. Our three current areas of concentration are farmers markets and direct-to-consumer marketing, food value chains, which we'll discuss in a second, food hubs, and really points of aggregation in general, and which Ron will focus on in a bit, food market facility design. In farmers market and direct-to-consumer marketing, probably many of you may know us, if you know us at all, from our work on our national food directories, national local food directories. Here is the listings of what we have right now. As you'll see, we have many more listings in our farmers market directory, over 8,700, compared to our other three directories, which were only launched in 2014. So this is both advertising about this resources available to you, but it's also a message to encourage those of you who know about markets and marketing entities that may not be in our free national directory and can benefit from the tens of thousands of visits this resource gets per month to get themselves listed. And if you go to this local USDA localfooddirectories.com page, the instructions on how to submit your information to be listed is provided for you. We also use the directories as a list frame for periodic national surveys of farmers market managers that we conduct. About 1,400 managers of farmers markets participated in our last national survey. And right now we have an ongoing memorandum of understanding with USDA's National Agricultural Statistical Service to carry out a survey next year for publication in 2020. So we're really looking forward to that. Food value chains and food hubs. Some of you may know that we are the group that really originated a lot of the work at the department around food hubs. Listed at the bottom of this slide are a number of the publications we put together. We're also very interested in examples of food value chains, which we really feel are a way for producers that have been able to exercise more market power in supply chains through their ability to sell differentiated food items, as well as assure better quality control and respond more rapidly to what consumers are looking for. Some of the things that distinguish value chains are business efforts that attempt to weave together social benefit and business entrepreneurship, as you may see with B corporations, social benefit corporations. They attempt to distribute benefits more equitably across the food supply chain. They can feature more collaborative and transparent partnerships across the supply chain and joint planning. And most times they try to establish shared operating principles and social mission objectives. And if anybody is interested in receiving a hard copy of these, I assume, by the way, that this presentation will be archived and these links will be active. But if people are interested in receiving a hard copy of these reports, I believe we can make any of them available. You can let Amanda know, let me know directly, and we will make sure that's taken care of. Most recently, we've gotten more involved in partnership with a number of land grant institutions and looking at economic contribution analyses and training. What's the intent here? Really to explore how the growing demand for local and regional food products has translated into increased economic benefit and opportunity for producers, local businesses, and farming communities and regions. You'll see a number of these products either at our own website, which I have listed here, as well as the localfoodeconomics.com site, which is hosted by Colorado State University, which has been a long time partner of us in much of this body of work. And right now we are one of the major funders of this portal. A major resource we developed in partnership with CSU and about a dozen other land grant universities and consultancies a couple of years ago is called The Economics of Local Food Systems, a toolkit to guide community discussions, assessments, and choices. Some of you may have seen this in the past. Purpose here was to really make, really provide a one-stop shopping place, a clearinghouse for the cutting-edge research that was being done on economic impact assessments of local food system investments and what was being planned, and help people understand what they have learned from the research that had been done to date. And it includes a number of recommendations for, and really appropriate for people at any stage of sophistication, from everything from how do you start the conversation about local food priorities in your community, to framing a study, collecting data, and interpreting economic multiplier effects, even to the point of adjusting some of the standard input-output equations in in-plan software in order to be more closely aligned with local food economic data. Last year, we were fortunate enough to have published in partnership with the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis and the Federal Reserve Board, a 17-chapter book, primarily developed to reach a financial audience and educate them about what was going on in the local and regional food sphere. And I encourage all of you, any of you who are interested, to take a look at this. It's got lots of great case study information and gives you lots of ideas of different strategies that have been used among, you know, public funders from the public sector, nonprofit foundations, even private capital, to advance a community and economic development goals through local food system development. And really more to the point of the bulk of today's discussion, much of our work currently revolves around providing services around market facility design that would benefit local and regional food systems. As Ronal will tell you later, he does a number of site assessments and produces design services for customers who are planning to construct or retrofit permanent food market facilities of many types, and anything from a review of site selection to an architectural rendering, estimate of building costs, review of specifications that are needed in equipment, and advice on improving energy efficiency. As he will illustrate very explicitly later, this can help you maximize the reach of available dollars for your project by providing that technical guidance, and gives you the information and technical credibility to move forward with plans and some of your local technical experts. So this slide just basically gives you a quick overview of some of the publications we've been responsible for in the last, say, half a dozen years. And moving on real quickly, and I won't spend too much time on this, but on to our grants and opportunities. I'm really going to focus today on a farmers market promotion program and local food promotion program, as these are the ones that are most targeted to meet the needs of stakeholders involved in local and regional food systems. I'm sure a lot of you are very curious about what is the impact of the recently passed Farm Bill on AMS grant programs, and my answer is we're very happy that we received mandatory funding, that these programs were alive and kicking, and we're excited to be moving ahead. However, a number of the details are still being worked out, so I can't give you great definitions on everything. What I've tried to do here is at least provide some insight based on discussions with our grant division leadership on what we do know to be true. As many of you probably are already aware, from at least a line item, budget line item perspective, our farmers market promotion programs and local food promotion programs are officially being merged in the same budgetary umbrella with a group under the umbrella of the local food marketing program, which includes the value-added producer grant program that is traditionally been the purview of USDA rural development. Now, it seems from the legislative language that RD, rural development, will continue to administer that program, but there will be a new emphasis on coordination between AMS and RD across all of these grant programs. We don't know yet exactly how that's going to work, but we will certainly keep you posted as it becomes cleared. What we do know is that the base funding, which is mandatory funding status, is $50 million for all of these programs, with the possibility of another $20 million that might be made available, could be made available during the annual appropriations process. For now, we expect the FY 2019 funding for FMPP and LFPP to be $23.5 million, down slightly from $26 million in 2018. I should also note that all programs under LAMP, including for the first time Farmers Market Promotion Program, FMPP, will require a match. Now, this match can be in kind, but that is something to pay attention to. One thing that new development that should be of great interest to this particular crowd is that for the first time, food policy councils are being recognized as an eligible entity for the Farmers Market and Local Food Promotion Program. So That's certainly a welcome change. And here is a list of just the existing, wide range of eligible entities that can apply for such funds. Don't know about the exact timing. I assume that we're probably looking at a request for proposals, pardon me, sometime in late winter, early spring, February, March period, which is pretty customary. We don't really have any signals on that yet. This is a quick overview. I'll leave it to you to kind of review this in greater detail at your leisure. But just a general rule of thumb, FMPP, traditionally the way it's been administered, it's been focused on producer to consumer, direct marketing activities, such as your farmer's market, CSA, roadside stand, etc. Could include direct online marketing. LFPP, it's tended to focus on the intermediary, non-direct consumer food versus enterprises that process, distribute, aggregate, label locally, regionally produced product that are identified by origin through the supply chain to final wholesale or retail sale. These programs are available to domestic entities owned, operated, and located within 50 states, District of Columbia, and U.S. territories. So, Farmers Market Promotion Program. Many of you already know this. The goals of the program to increase domestic consumption, access to locally and regionally produced ag products. Right now, we accept two types of project applications. One is called capacity building, which really groups together most of the internal facing activities for an organization or entity. And the other is community development, training, and technical assistance that mostly consists of external facing. And, you know, on capacity building, we have, this is from last year's information. The grant period is 66 months. The award last year, the range from 50,000 to 250,000. And projects were expected to demonstrate a benefit to farm and ranch operations serving local markets and maximize their involvement. I should say most AMS grant programs tend to have a producer focus, which is very much in alignment with our authorizing legislation, and something to keep in mind as you're putting together your grant proposal ideas. Community development, training, and technical assistance, again, looking to support relevant outreach, training, and technical assistance. Priorities in the recent past have looked to include a diverse stakeholder membership and demonstrate a substantive impact on the food system and the participants within it. In the local food promotion program, grants have been distributed either in the category of initial planning grants, which are a year and a half long, and the funding has ranged from $25,000 to $100,000, or implementation grants that are 3 years long, where the funding has ranged from $100,000 to $500,000. And, you know, just some examples, really, it's a little bit, you know, straightforward. We'll look at the first example here. For a planning grant, if you're looking to conduct a feasibility study for a new food hub, for example, that would be a planning grant. You're not talking about, you know, actually creating the facility. You're talking about planning for the possible creation of a facility, whereas the implementation grant category would be more appropriate if you were establishing or expanding the scope of a food hub or an incubator or some such enterprise. These are just listed briefly for you, some of the project activities that are ineligible for funding. Obviously, those that don't have anything to do with direct farm marketing or local regional food, purchasing food and services for donations, production-related expenses, which include farm equipment purchases, tools, materials, supplies, and related costs, brick and mortar construction, building, rehabilitation, and land acquisition. Anything that solely relies on the purchase of or lease, should be or not of a vehicle, and so only benefits one producer or one supply chain participant. Those are, you know, the main restrictions. In closing, this is a slide that shows you basically all of the existing USDA programs that support different aspects of the local food supply chain. I invite you to look at this at your leisure. And if you have any questions, feel free to follow up with them. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Ron, and so you can hear what he has to say. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Debbie. Let me just open up my presentation. Give me 1 second. Okay, can everybody see my presentation? Debbie, can you see that? Are we good?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. So my name is Ron Batcher. I am the nationwide lead for the Wholesale Market and Food Facility Design Program. I've come to understand over the very short period I've been at USDA that this is not a very well-known technical assistance opportunity that many people know of. So this opportunity today to talk to the group of you is fantastic because I get to word out a little bit more about the program. Now, the Wholesale Market and Food Facility Design, the program, we assist with both existing buildings and new construction buildings. If you have, even conceptually, if a stakeholder comes to me and basically just has the idea of, say, starting a farmer's market, I can assist in the beginning phases of, what they need to get a farmer's market going, how to get, support and work out site selection and things of that nature. Now, when did it begin? So Debbie already mentioned the Agriculture Marketing Act of 1946. This is actually what started the Wholesale Market and Food Facility Design Program back then. And then it was actually focused on wholesale markets solely. The division here was extensively made up of architects and engineers that worked in the early stages of the development of wholesale markets across the United States. The images here is just an example of what the Philadelphia market looked like pre-1955, before the act, and in 2008, this is what the facility looks like today. There was large steps taken over the many years, and Debbie also mentioned another act in the 1976, and that mainly focused on direct-to-consumer markets, and that's what brought in a lot of the food hubs and farmers markets into the program for technical assistance. Now, what do we offer? These are just a few examples of some of the services that we offer. Environmental issues, we actually work with EPA with another program that I'll mention in just a moment that helps with environmental issues. We can work with EPA to have you have the testing done. Site selection, if you're looking for a site, you have a couple options. I can kind of walk you through the different things that you need to look for when selecting a site, what works best for the number of, say, in a farmer's market, the number of participants or the number of sites that you want. Building cost studies. Now, we don't get into the nitty-gritty with the cost studies. We'll do square foot costs, which basically will get you a general idea of what the facility is going to cost. We don't get into the exact details. We usually give you a range in costs depending on what your options are. We'll work with you on maybe doing things in stages or phases with the plans that we can develop, and work with you and local officials. Coordinating with local design professionals. The program itself only will provide technical assistance through the design phase of projects. So 3D renderings, schematic design, initial floor plan layouts, equipment selection and location. Once we do all that and you have a general design set, we can hand that off to any of the architects or construction companies that you are going to work with locally. We don't get into doing any of the construction documents per se, but we can work as a third party throughout the process of construction to assist you with any questions you might have or any questions the architect or contractor might have throughout the construction of the project. And that also gets into the third-party design reviews. If you already have an architect, you already have plans, you have questions that you don't want to ask them directly, you can send those plans to me, and I can look them over for you, review them, give you input. If there's something that may not seem right, I'll let you know, and you can take that back to your hired professional. And there's many more, but if you have questions about that, please let me know. I tried to help as much as possible, but the program only allows me to go so far into food-related facilities before I really can't do much for assistance. Now I'm going to go into some examples. These are 3D renderings of the Fair Center in Appleton City. This was developed as part of the Local Foods, Local Places Promotion Program. Now, this is an EPA program that provides 2-day on-site technical assistance to communities across the U.S. The applications for this year just closed, but please take a look at the program through EPA. Just make sure that you get the name of it again. It's Local Food, Local Places. You have to apply. It's a task force of EPA, USDA, HUD, and a few other agencies that provide on-site technical assistance. So after the initial 2-day site technical assistance, they asked me to do further renderings and design plans so they can take their idea and take it to some investors and look for funding. So these 2 images are actually 3D renderings that I developed. 3D renderings is actually something new that we can offer now since I started. This isn't something that we had offered in the past. So I'm pretty excited that we can offer this to our stakeholders. If you need renderings to take to, to get funding, banks and lenders always like to see pretty pictures. They like to see what it's going to look like. A lot of people can't really look at a 2D plan and really visualize what the space is going to look like. So like I said, I'm very excited to offer this to our stakeholders. So Appleton City, this was, like I said, an on-site technical assistance with additional assistance afterwards. Now, before the meeting, we had a brief conversation with the speakers, and thankfully, I'm taking note of this now. They asked me to see or to let everyone know how much this technical assistance saved the stakeholders. Now, this assistance is a no-cost design program, so none of my work will cost any of the stakeholders any money. So these 3D renderings were at no cost to Appleton City. Now this project with the plans that I'm going to show you in a second and the 3D renderings, the total amount that they would have saved in the current market for architectural design services, this would have saved them around $19,000 worth of architectural assistance. Now, what they requested, which I see as a trend in a lot of small communities across the US now, is it's not necessarily a business incubator or a leasable kitchen or a food hub. They are really going towards a food center that has all of that available in one space. That way people don't have to, travel from one place to another. Everything is right under one roof, and it's easy to, get local food through the food hub, which this facility here, they wanted to do a leasable kitchen with a business incubator and a small food hub that provided distribution in that area. Like I said, this is what I see very often now as the requests that are coming through for architectural assistance. Now, Frenchtown Farmers Market, they had actually already had an architect on board, and that architect was not able to get to the redevelopment of the plan as they wanted it, so they came and requested that I provide them with, excuse me, with an updated plan with the new equipment that they wanted to install in the building. So they provided me with the existing plans they already had in place. I took those plans and inputted them into the software that I use and developed the floor plans for them. Uh, so there wasn't a whole lot of design services in this, but it's really just assisting the stakeholder in the development of an architectural design plan that they could then use to advance their construction. This was about $6,000 worth of architectural design services at no cost to them. Redwood Valley, California, Grange number 382. This project actually stemmed out of another local food, local places program that we had in Ukiah, California. They were an attendee at that technical assistance meeting, and they reached out to me afterwards, and I thankfully had a chance to go and see their facility. I don't necessarily have a chance to travel to all of the locations that I assist, but that is possible as long as we have the travel budget in place where I can go and visit. So I like to tell all the stakeholders, the more information that you could provide me upfront, the better I can assist you with the design services I can offer if I can't travel to your location. But this Grange, they had an old kitchen that they wanted to have demolished and reconstructed. So I did like I said, I was actually there on site. I was able to do the dimensions and take photos and actually work up the plan for the demolition and work with them with what they wanted for the new layout of the kitchen. This was approximately $5,000 worth of architectural design services. Now, the chopping facility in Warrenton, North Carolina. This stakeholder, I honestly can't remember how they had found our services, but it was something new that I hadn't had an opportunity to assist in designing. This is actually another one that is very close to one of the local food, local places communities, and I was actually able to make a visit to this site directly after one of those two-day workshops, which was fantastic because it was very close. It was actually the next town over. So I took an extra day and was able to go through the facility and talk to the stakeholders and really work out what they wanted for their facility. They do minor processing for leafy greens. They wanted to expand their facility, add a couple additional storage units. They were lacking in cold chain, so they wanted to come up with a plan that they can utilize a cold chain throughout their facility. So they actually came back after this plan was completed. They went out and did their funding. Just a couple months ago, they recontacted me to redevelop the plans after they were looking at a different type of addition to their building. So I was able to help them again with the design services. To date, the services I provided came to around $16,000 worth of architectural design services at no cost to them. Now, Elgin, Texas, this was actually one of my very earlier projects before I attained some of the software that shows, as you can see, the bottom is a very nice image. The top two are kind of a little rudimentary. I was able to attain the software afterwards. But the top two images, the stakeholder wanted to, like I said, have a local food center with an incubator, local food, all under one roof. And the top image they have found in this very small town, it's probably about 8 square blocks in total. It was a historic sausage factory, and they were looking at attaining this building for their food center. So I took the plans that they had sent me, worked a lot with Google Maps and tried to work out the site plan with the additional buildings. This was they had very limited information on the building, so I did a lot of extrapolating out of Google Maps I don't like to do that very often, especially when it comes to actually doing a detailed plan, but this was really just conceptual for the stakeholder to attain funding for this project. After those first two initial images at the top, they did actually attain $8,000 worth of funding for this project with these renderings and with the services that we provided. So this was very, very exciting for our division to have such an impact with such a small amount of input on our part. The design services and 3D renderings that you see to date have totaled about $11,000 worth of architectural design services. So with that small investment that we had for the stakeholder, they ended up with, $800,000 worth of funding. So after those top two images, the building and attaining that building fell through for them, so they came back again and requested that I design a new facility for them, and that is what the lower image is showing. I think that is all I have for my design services. I hope that there's questions. I would be very happy to answer anything that you can throw at me.
Thanks, Ron. So if anybody has any questions for Debbie or Ron, you can go ahead and submit those in the Q&A box or the chat box. I'll check both of them. There was one question that came through so far, and they asked about the presentation being made available for download. So I will send out the PowerPoints that Debbie and Ron have used today, along with the link to the recorded video. So those will come out. They'll be coming out through the Ohio Food Policy Network listserv. If you are not subscribed to the listserv, feel free to let me know, to make a note so I can either subscribe you or make sure you get access to those materials.
And while we're waiting, I'm just going to make one addition or a reflection related to Ron's excellent presentation, which is that we do have immediate plans to hire a second architect, staff architect for our group. My understanding is that that vacancy announcement is currently being reviewed by our human resources group in DC. I'm sorry, in Minneapolis, so we can come back to DC. And so I don't know when this hiring will happen, but we certainly do look to expand our internal capacity to offer or maybe augment the existing services that Ron provides in the fairly near future. So, and we look to it as being an increasingly important component of the services that our division offers. So.
Thanks for that clarification, Debbie. I just wanted to mention that currently it is just me doing this nationwide, so my plate is extensively full after a lot of the promotions that we've been doing about the program. It's not a grant-related opportunity. I have a single form to just fill out, and I will put all the stakeholders on a list as priority as they come to me. So I will do my best to get to everyone that sends in the request.
Thanks, Ron. We have two questions, and I'm going to ask them out of order since the one was most relevant to what you just said. Tom Phillips from Stark Fresh in Stark County asked, what's the best way to get started to see if a project need we have will fit what Ron can help us with? And what is the lead time backlog already in line for the service? So I know you kind of already touched on that a little bit, Ron, but if you wanted to expand.
Sure. Currently, I am about 2 months for a lead time for any new project that's coming through. That's pretty much been consistent over the past 6 months. I'm really getting 1 or 2 technical assistance requests every week now. So a lot of the requests aren't that large. So if I could actually finish some that wouldn't have taken so long, or that I had planned on taking longer, I could generally get to some of these a little sooner. But it all really depends on the scope, size, and time frame that you're looking at the project.
Right.
And I'd like to tackle Christy's question if I can.
Yeah.
Because I just think that I think there's another question sort of underlying it, so I want to unpack it a bit. So it says, Christy asks, are your services available for individual producers just to communities? And I want to make a distinction between the services that we provide as the result of the local food, local places, LFLP competitively awarded technical assistance, which those workshops are awarded to communities, municipalities, towns that apply on an individual basis, and we get involved during the workshop and sometimes before and after in formally scheduled calls, and also can lead to some ongoing technical assistance on our part. As I mentioned on the grants, individual producers, I mean, if you're talking about a single producer, then, you know, most of our grants are not eligible. Now, when it comes to whether we make a distinction generally in TA between producers and communities, I say that AMS at Marketing Services, we're agnostic about that. We're very, very producer oriented. And so, you know, I think the question is to come with us with ideas, and we can see how well it fits in. There are going to be some things where we can do some customized stuff. Otherwise, we might have some ideas of material that could be used for training. We have done that quite a bit with land grants, providing, say, some of the work that we've done on community support agriculture and farmers market performance for boot camps that have been held for producers, coordinated by places like University of Kentucky and Clemson. So lots of possibilities. So I just wanted to kind of make that distinction, and you might have a follow-up, Christy. We can talk about that offline.
Great, thanks, Debbie. Oh, Christy just wrote back that she said I should clarify the facility design services. Are these available for individuals?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're not, and design definitely is not just through local food, local places. This is what we do. We have offered a number of them through local food, local places because it matches up so neatly with the local food, local places initiatives emphasis on marrying smart growth with local food system development. And over the past 3 years, we have really amped up our presence and involvement with their strong encouragement. It's a very nice match for our services, and it gives us a way of reaching out directly to communities that it might be harder for us to achieve otherwise, but it certainly is not exclusive to that.
Great. So we've got a few more. So Isaac, he said his brother currently goes to Norwich University, and it's a great school. And he wants to know, for a rural farming community, roughly what size building would you advise for a farmer's market or a food hub?
Well, that's a very hard question to answer without more information. So it all depends on the size of the community, how many vendors are interested in the farmers market, how many farms you have in the area to provide to the food hub for distribution. So if you would like to contact me directly, I can hopefully ask more questions and get a little bit more detail to answer that a little more clear for you. And good for your brother for going there. It's a great school. I actually went there because it's a much smaller school. And I love nature, so Vermont is definitely beautiful to be.
So those are the questions we have so far through the chat box. So I would encourage people to still send them in if you have a few more. I have 2 questions that were submitted for Debbie from Michaela Oldfield from Greater Cincinnati Food Policy Council and Green Umbrella. And so she wanted me to ask first, Debbie, why isn't Ohio included in the Harmonized Good Agricultural Practices and Harmonized Good Agricultural Practices Plus audits? What do we need to get these kinds of resources available in our region? A lack of GAP certified farmers is a major problem for schools in our region wanting to purchase more local foods.
Right. So as I had told Amanda prior to this webinar, I only know part of the answer. I know exactly who I need to ask the question of. She has just popped her head in earlier, and if you heard me saying goodbye to somebody, it was Trish Kovacs, our senior advisor on local regional food, who also is a lead contact person on a number of issues pertaining to Group GAP and small mid-sized farms, and works a lot with our specialty crop and inspection division. So I will pass that along to her. My understanding is that the regulation is interpretation of some equation based on prorated crop insurance participation that dictated which states received that particular support and which did not. But I know very little beyond that, and so I will make sure to pass that question along to her, and which she could share with her colleagues so that we can get back to you with a more precise answer. And I would also encourage you to look at other programs within the AMS community and possibly elsewhere. Certainly, I know that, something like LFLP, if you're talking about intermediate sales, if it's talking about GRAP certification for farmers are participating in farm to school or other intermediated sales of local food. I would think that I know in the past that has certainly been an area that has been funded through our LFPP program, and I would imagine that would continue to do so in the future, given the importance of food safety that to this administration and to the community.
Okay, and her second question was related to the commodity procurement program. With the recent announcement of them purchasing up to $1.2 billion in commodities to support the trade mitigation efforts. She asks, is anything else being done to make sure this doesn't undercut local food and farm to school efforts, especially concerned about apples since they have been a first win for a lot of schools and food hubs in establishing farm to school?
Sure have.
Going to be ways to help small farmers sell in the DoD Fresh program, and will schools be able to trace where the product is from if they're trying to increase local purchasing? I know it's a long question.
It's a long question, and it's a complicated question to answer. And as I hinted to you earlier, this is another one that we actually have a number of people detailed right now to the procurement office to help with their, the short-term emphasis on doing these special buys. I'm also tempted to send that question to the head of the Farm to School program at FNS for her thoughts on it. My initial take on it, and as I say, I'm not an expert on procurement. I think we're not talking about the same market, or the marketing channels for the same kind of farmer. I think we're talking about USDA food bids. I think you're talking about people that are generally dealing in larger volume. They may even be looking for different specifications. I know a lot of times, I spent a lot of time in Ohio working on farm to school back in the day because God knows Marcy Captor was the biggest ever advocate. And I spent a lot of time in Toledo suburbs talking about it with people from Ohio School Food Service a number of years ago. And, your packing size, there was a desire for the smaller apple in schools that wasn't necessarily the same as they may be looking for in other channels of trade. So I don't know the exact answer. I would say this is short term. I would say that often the people that are looking for the school contracts may not be the ones that are looking for the kind of volume that the USDA foods procurement demands. But I don't profess to be an expert on it. I'm happy to try to get more clarification for you on it.
Thanks, Debbie. I will pass this recording along to Michaela so she can follow up with you.
Okay.
Any other questions? I don't think we missed anything. I did see it, someone asked me to add them to the listserv. I will do that. And just as a reminder, I will send the PowerPoint out with all of the links that Debbie and Ron had shared. Also, make sure to note that Debbie put quite a few links in the chat box. So if you want to open those and take a peek at them and save them, maybe bookmark them on your computer, you can do that at this time as well. So we'll give maybe another 30 seconds and see if anybody.
Amanda, can I just respond to, I see Joe, is it Joe Perlacki?
Yeah.
I concur with Ohio GAP certification needs for the farmer. Inspection costs of small farmers are our greatest challenge. If you can make sure that I have his email, I want to send him information about the fairly new group GAP certification program that USDA unveiled, I think, 2 years ago approximately, and see whether or not that might be an option. It's the lowering of inspection costs is not the main benefit that people that were in the pilot program experienced, but the members, about a dozen members in the pilot who tried out the beta tested group gap program thought that that would be a medium-term benefit, certainly. And there's just a lot of learning and creating a culture of food safety and benefits from doing this as a group that they were very impressed by. So if he's not familiar with that, I certainly would like to direct him to people who can fill him in on that.
Great. I'll make sure to connect you guys.
All right.
So if we don't have any other questions, we can go ahead and begin to wrap up a little bit. So still about 30 seconds to a minute to submit something for our speakers today. Just a reminder, we will be having the next Ohio Food Policy Network virtual convening in January. It looks like the days and times will stay the same based on the survey results. People seem to enjoy the third Thursday of each month from 12 to 1, so that worked out really well. And so our January virtual convening will be a much deeper dive on the Farm Bill. So I know Debbie gave you a little bit of an update in terms of how Farm Bill changes are going to impact her offices and the programs that they offer. But we'll be having a much deeper discussion in January on that. So you'll see some information come out through the listserv to be able to register for that virtual convening as well. So.
And it might be a good time. I might encourage you, Amanda, or other representatives from this group to reach out to our grant division, say in January, February, before they are, responsible for administering the program, to maybe provide some clarification. I'm sure some of the grant specialists would be happy to talk about some of the changes they're seeing, the impact of the Farm Bill on their program. So if that is of interest, I suspect they'd be open to it.
Great. Yeah, we'll definitely reach out to them and see if they maybe want to join us and go over some of that stuff.
Great.
Any last minute questions? Going once, going twice? Okay. Well,
We thank you for the time that you've spent with us. It's great for us to be able to connect, and thank you, Amanda, for making this happen. And I hope that people have found it beneficial, and we're really here to help you. So thank you for being engaged and interested, and we'll do what we can to get the word out.
Thank you both, Debbie and Ron. This has been great, and I'm sure we'll get lots of emails and people will view this recording. I think it was people were very excited about this opportunity. So we really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to work with us.
No worries.
Thanks, Amanda.
All right. Well, if there's nothing else, everybody have a happy new year, and we'll talk to you in January.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.